Hi everyone! In this video, we are going to learn how we can use this template to practice telling time in durations of 1 hour and half an hour. Let's take a look at our story here in our book to understand a little bit more about telling time in durations of 1 hour and half an hour. Here, Xing Yi goes for her piano lesson every Saturday. The lesson starts at 10 a.m. and ends at 11 a.m. You can see that the clock is drawn here, the clock face, and the time here written with what many of you would be able to recognize on your watches. What do you notice about the clock hands here? Can you see that one of the clock hands has moved and one of the clock hands does not seem like it has moved? The hour hand has actually moved to point at 10 to 11 o'clock. By now, you have realized that when the hour hand moves from 10 to 11, that would mean that actually 60 minutes would have passed. That is, the minute hand, the long hand here, would have gone one round around the clock, causing the hour hand to move from 10 to 11. Because in 1 hour, there are 60 minutes. 60 minutes or 1 hour after 10 a.m. is 11 a.m. So, we can say that the piano lesson lasts 1 hour. We will write H for hour. Can you think of any other activities that last 1 hour? So here we have a story about hour. Let's take a look at half an hour now. Here in this story, Raju starts doing his mathematics homework at 4 p.m. and completes it at 4:30 p.m. Now, what's the same and what's different about these two clock faces? You can see that the minute hand here has moved half the clock face, starting to point from o'clock to point at 6. And the hour hand is now pointing between 4 and 5. That means from 4 o'clock, it has become 4:30. 30 minutes or half an hour after 4 p.m. is 4:30 p.m. This means Raju takes 30 minutes to complete his homework. We write minutes here, M-I-N, for minutes. Can you think of any other activities that last half an hour? Notice that we are using the word half because 30 minutes is half of 60 minutes, and you can also see clearly on the clock how when the minute hand moves half clock face, it would have meant half an hour has passed. Now let's practice with our templates here, starting with some examples. Here we have Mr. Ahmad and his family having their dinner at 7 p.m. I'm going to write that here. The time is at 7 p.m. when they started having their dinner. Drawing the clock hands here, the short hand pointing at 7, the long hand, the minute hand pointing at 12. That would mean 7 p.m. Now, notice the clock face when they have finished their dinner. Where are the clock hands pointing? Mr. Ahmad and his family finished their dinner at 8 o'clock. You can see that when it's 8 o'clock, the hour hand has moved to 8 here, pointing at 8, whereas the minute hand is still pointing at 12. Actually, what it means is that the minute hand has gone one round around the clock face to be pointing back at 12. But the hour hand has already moved to 8 o'clock. Just as if described, shown here. So, Mr. Ahmad and his family finished their dinner at 8 o'clock here. And that would mean that they have taken 1 hour or 60 minutes. Because 60 minutes after 7 o'clock will be 8 o'clock. So you can find the end time of the dinner here, and that's 1 hour or 60 minutes after 7 o'clock. Right, let's try another one, shall we? Here, in the next story, Mr. Tan is baking cookies. What time did he start baking cookies? The clock shows 10 o'clock. Let's practice drawing the clock hands onto our clock face here. He started baking the cookies at 10 a.m. Short hand pointing at 10, that's the hour hand, and o'clock, the long hand pointing at 12. So it's 10 a.m. or 10 o'clock. Here you can see the time that he has finished baking. It's 10:30. Take a look closely at how the hands have changed. The hour hand is now pointing between 10 and 11, and that's because the minute hand has moved half the clock face to point at 6 here. That's why 10:30. So you'll notice that it's half an hour after 10 o'clock, which also means that Mr. Tan took 30 minutes or half an hour to bake his cookies. Right, here are the two examples that we practiced from our book. Shall we try another fun one? Now, there are many ways to use the template. You can actually also get daddy or mommy or your friend to give you a time and make you draw out the start time or the end time after choosing of a duration box here. Right? So you can show a time and try practicing going before or after the time that's written. Right, okay, so let's take a look at this fun story here. Here's a little poem, a short story. Let's take a read. Near the window, an old lady sits. Taking out her needles, she begins to knit. She works carefully with such great speed. 30 minutes is all she needs. Next, she decorates her work with buttons. For half an hour without disruption. At 10:30, she's done. Making the piece has been so much fun. At what time did she start her knitting? So the little fun story, let's take a look at the time that's given here. At 10:30, she's finally done. I'm going to draw 10:30 here. 10:30, that's when my shorthand, the hour hand, is pointing between 10 and 11. And the minute hand is pointing at 6, which is 30 minutes. Now, thinking about the story again, what did she do? She begins to knit as she sits near the window, and she works carefully with great speed. 30 minutes is all she needs for completing the knitting that she's done. Next, that's the next step. She decorates her work with buttons for half an hour without disruption. So how many things did she do in this story? There are 2 things that she has done. First, knitting what looks like a scarf, her work that's completed, for 30 minutes. Then, the second thing she did was to decorate the work with buttons. And that was another half an hour. We can consider using a strategy called working backwards. From 10:30, let's work backwards. It was half an hour ago that she started with the buttons. So she did the buttons for half an hour without disruption. So do you know what's 30 minutes before 10:30? That's right. So 30 minutes before 10:30 would have been 10 o'clock. With my minute hand pointing at 12 and my hour hand pointing at 10. Because 10 o'clock is 30 minutes before 10:30. Or half an hour. So 10 o'clock is half an hour before 10:30. Now, we need to go backwards again. Starting here with 10 o'clock. Writing here 10 o'clock because that's what the time working backwards at 10 o'clock where she was putting the buttons in. Now we got to work backwards again, 30 minutes of half an hour before. So my minute hand moves back at half an hour, 30 minutes here, to be pointing at 6. What about the hour hand? You will have moved backwards to between 9 and 10. So the old lady started knitting actually at 9:30. That's the time. Now, is there a shortcut for this to get to this answer? Sure, there is. Do you already know? That's great. Let's try it out. So we have the end time here as 10:30. Here's another method, okay? A shortcut to it. So we know that she's ended and she's finally done at 10:30. If she has taken half an hour to decorate her work with buttons and 30 minutes to knit, can you tell me how long did she take to do this knitting? Half an hour for the buttons, 30 minutes for knitting. That actually means 60 minutes or 1 hour before. Right, so She actually sat at the window for 1 hour. 30 minutes for knitting and half an hour for decoration. So 1 hour before means that my minute hand will move one round around the clock face, pointing back at 30 at 6. And my hour hand will have moved 1 hour to point at 9:30. Here's the shortcut. Do you get this right? Right, so using this template can be really fun. If you think about all the different stories, you can discuss about time with your friends and your family members. Try practicing drawing the clock hands, telling stories about time, be it using the examples from the book or from your daily life. Have fun! See you next time.